podcast.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk lore. We're live.
Fantastic.
Welcome back. Let's talk lore. If you want to know how to build some good dungeons and want some strategies, this is the episode for you.
Before we get started, my name is Chris. This is Spencer. We're happy to have you guys join us as we figure all this out.
Oh yeah. So I was thinking, just really, we're going to do two sessions, but just talking about the beginning of setting up a dungeon. And as a dungeon master, I find that you can get lost and it can be overwhelming, just like anything. A while ago we talked about markets and how like markets could be overwhelming at certain points. Well,
yeah,
dungeons probably more so. And I know that you had brought up, I believe you brought up while we were talking about strategies and whatnot for making a simple dungeon. Let's just say you had an hour before the session. Life went by during the week, and you only had an hour to set up, as it happens all the time.
Yeah.
What's your strategy? What would
setting
you?
up a dungeon?
Yeah, like we had like a 5-step dungeon. Let's take that one.
Okay. Well, I know we have there's the popular strategy, and I love it, and I'm going to start implementing it now of like the 5-room dungeon.
Right.
But like my strategy for getting started is to find out what's my goal, what's my purpose of that dungeon, what do I want to get out of that dungeon in the hour I'm planning it.
Right.
My strategy, figure that out. And once I have my strategy, my goal of like what my goal for the players is to from where they're starting to where they're ending. What is my purpose of their path, of them going into this place or meeting these people? And then I basically put the two pieces on a puzzle. Like I have the players and I have what I want them to do, and then I start throwing obstacles in the way.
Right.
If I have an hour just trying to spitball, it can be anything. Just like, all right, there's a complication here. There's a random NPC there. There's all of these different things. And it's the world getting in the way from them going from A to B.
So the 5-step process. So what they were saying, it wasn't a 5-step process. I mean, it is a 5-step process, but what it was saying was a 5-room dungeon. So, a while ago on one of these Let's Talk Lore podcasts, you were talking to me about strategies in just preparing a campaign. Now we'll go back to that eventually because there's infinite number of possible topics that we can talk about. But one of the to bring it to just a simple, let's just say 1-session dungeon. Okay,
right.
Last week we just got to a temple where there's obviously going to be some sort of dungeon. Doesn't necessarily have to be a dungeon where you go into, but maybe the temple itself is the dungeon. There are 5 rooms. I used to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to have a trap, I'm going to have a puzzle, and I'm going to have an encounter. And then hopefully, depending on what you guys do, a boss fight of some kind or like a happening. The 5-room dungeon is very similar to that, where you have your beginning, where you sort of thread in and weave in that, as you were talking about, the why you're here. And then you have another room where it's a trap or like a riddle or a puzzle of some kind. Maybe the 3rd room is a little bit more complex maybe you have to go back. And the 3rd room is supposed to be something that draws in tension. Maybe you split the party for a second. Maybe there's some a person in there that you're supposed to talk to. Maybe there's role play. And then the 4th room is supposed to be boom, like some sort of interaction. And it doesn't have to be, a lot of people like to do the combat and whatnot. It doesn't necessarily have to be combat. And then the 5th portion of it would be the resolve. Plot twist. Maybe you open a door and you realize that there's more to this dungeon. Next time we'll explore more. So like that sort of layout helps you timeline it. I don't necessarily like that sort of layout. I like to have a little bit of, okay, you're going to have a trap, you're going to have a riddle, you're going to have this and that, and you base it on the players. I'm always a big fan of basing it on the players. So,
Yeah.
you know,
But when we're looking at this, that idea of the 5 room dungeon, the strategy you just explained, I think about that and I expand it not just to like one session, but you can take that concept and move into, and what I'm doing now is like a little story arc. Say you have your 8 to 10 sessions. That sort of feel you can have go through your whole campaign. So it doesn't have to be just rooms. And the thing that I started loving about this is really puts any session into a concept of this 5 room dungeon. You don't have to have walls around you. You don't have to have a deep mine that you're in. It can be you're in courtyards outside and you're talking to various people, or these rooms in the dungeon are different parts of your town that you're going through for the day. But the idea of weaving in the aspects for the characters of like certain characters love certain things and they thrive in certain spaces. So you don't have to have these individual rooms and like be a special room for them. Just have that encounter of their type just amongst the travelings of the day.
right.
It could be absolutely anything, anywhere, anytime that is your dungeon.
To go along with this, I was reading, and as we do these podcasts, I like to do a little bit of pre-reading, pre-research. Another guy was saying, maybe a good dungeon, similar way of doing a 5 room dungeon would be to have, your the people that you play with. There's usually 3 to 5 people. Um, you could technically have a trap, puzzle, riddle, encounter, role play that is really built around one of those characters.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
what they were saying, and I think you need to be a little bit more. You might need a little bit more than an hour to set this up, but do you do you have enough time or knowledge of the game to, if it's a barbarian and the guy likes to role play, that is going to be a very hard one to. It might be a hard one to set up a room for that, but like obviously, strength comes into hand. Like obviously, a feat of strength. Think of them as feats of things.
Hmm.
A feat of knowledge for the character who is your wizard or your history buff. A feat of role play for your bard. And the more creative the role play, doesn't necessarily have to be, you're conversing with someone, but maybe there's something you have to do. Maybe there's like a song you have to play, or so whatever.
Hmm.
Making it tailored toward the character, to me, is a better way of setting up that type of 5 room dungeon. I do like the 5 rooms, or maybe four
Hmm.
rooms or 3, whatever it is.
Or
But
however many you need. Yeah.
I do think that setting up the dungeon so that each character has a little taste of something they want. Like I just, and again, back to the character thing or the player thing even. I know that my players in my group. And if you were setting up your dungeon, I would hope that you would ask your players before you even begin doing the game. What do you like? Like,
Hmm.
Matt wants to fight. Aaron wants items. So
To
maybe
steal everything. Yeah.
right. So maybe you set up a room that has a weird item in it that is the trap or whatever.
Or
And
have some
yeah,
random puzzle about stealing
yeah,
some item that he's going to be gung ho about.
yeah, or like a a riddle.
But I think what you're picking up on is something I was thinking the whole time you're talking. It's about your setting it up for the player for the characters, but also setting it up for the players. We're here to play the game, so setting it up in a way that that character, that person, not the character, the player enjoys playing,
Right.
and
And then
adding all those elements that once you find something that you know that a character likes, you're like, okay, I can throw that style in at any time and if get them hooked right away.
Right. And I think one of the here this person just wrote 24 rooms. uh, I think I mean a 24 room.
I'm
Listen, we're
happy.
gonna.
I
I
love.
know
I've been waiting for that long dungeon crawl
we.
in Doomhand Skulls of Power.
I am setting one up.
Spencer, this is something that I, as a player, like is that dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
Let's go through that deep dark pit and spend 3 sessions in this one day of combat
Yeah.
to go through this place. That's what I love.
To that's hilarious. To bring it back, I just think that yes, the dungeon should tailor to the individual player. Each you should have a little taste. Everyone should get a little taste of your creativity.
Mhm.
And there is a fine line that you need to walk between when it comes to playing these games, because you remember it is a game. We are here for fun. If you wanted to tell a story, go and you're only focused on the story, maybe you should go write a book and be a player and let someone else DM. It could be,
Yeah.
it's not um
Well,
but
but also you're a player too.
right, of
So if
course.
there's stuff that you like to do that works with everyone else, then do that.
Right. And
Or
here's
throw some fun things in that you really want to try or play or explore.
right. And here's I'm gonna blow it open a little bit here. When I take a city or a forest or a
Mhm.
desert, that's the dungeon. That to me is a
Yeah.
dungeon. When you
Yeah.
guys were flying in the ship, trying, I was like, where were these guys going now? I don't really have anything planned out.
Oh,
Um,
like the water, the ocean.
right, right, or
We
the
were
water.
building the dungeon.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes, and I was doing this with Matt, and now Matt has told me, and Matt plays Ignis every Monday or every other Monday with us. Well, one of his 5 people, the other 4 have died. Uh, he has told me that he likes the random encounters. So
Mhm.
that's something to think about when I build a dungeon. So maybe in a
Some
couple rooms,
randomness in there.
just maybe there's a role play encounter where it's not like a trap or anything like that. You just
Yeah.
there's just a random quality to it, and it's that type of thing that makes it interesting for the players. It's that type of thing that makes it a little bit edgy and interesting for the DM as well, because you guys can, it might be that I randomly put something in these dungeons that takes you off the path, and
Mhm.
that makes the game for me pretty interesting. And if you just have a basic layout of a dungeon, one room, this room, it might be a little bit boring for you as the DM to play. So
Yeah.
because you already know what the traps are
You
and the
already see
solutions.
where everything is. You know
Right.
what everything is happening.
So
You're not exploring it for the first time.
I hope that sort of summary or little strategy for DMs can be helpful
Yeah.
when creating their next dungeon. And I think in a few minutes we're gonna create one
Yep.
together,
I'm excited too.
um, as we do the next dungeon, Doomhand. Let's talk lore.
So, question for
Yeah.
you. What do you, as Spencer, like and dislike about running dungeons?
Sometimes, and this is something that this is something that comes up a lot, and you'll see memes about it. It's like the puzzles are sometimes so easy in my mind that you overlook how hard it is to do it. And I think that like I'm gonna get better at it because um, I just have these conversations we always have. I just think that like the way you DM, it is my fault. I feel like. So sometimes there's like it gets really boring sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, look over there. Go touch that thing. Like it's right there. It's right there. The answer is words. The answer is words. It's like, what's the riddle was like, what do you use to make a sentence? It's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, it's the answer. Sometimes it's just, I don't know. I like dungeons, to be honest, but I just think that in our game we haven't really had a dungeon crawl, and I think
Hmm.
that's because I play the world as its own dungeon. And I want to bring that element, and I'm having such a fun time doing it that I think I need to bring that element back into the ground, back
Mhm.
into the cave. So we'll see. I mean, I'm excited. I got a dungeon coming up, and we're gonna build one, and we're gonna lay it out. You know,
All right.
so
Stay tuned.
hit subscribe. We'll be right back, and of course, we're ready. Grab some dice, Chris.